Bonjour. It's a special day. It's not a beginning or an end, you know, the recognition for the work that we've done. I'm Tim Lay. I'm a father, husband, a family guy. Those things are also incredibly important to me. But in terms of what I do all day, every day, I'm a physician scientist who studies acute myeloid leukemia, how it happens, what the mechanisms are that cause it and that cause it to move forward, why we fail to cure most of our patients, and trying to develop new therapies that will help our folks.
Research never completely ends, you know, but it does go through stages, and it does go through phases, and you know, and of course progress isn't always linear, but overall the direction is positive, even though it may not go at the same rate all the time. I'm Hasse Yennett from the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute in Boston, Massachusetts. I work on lung cancer, and I direct our lung cancer program at the Dana-Farber.
These kinds of awards provide a kind of an external view of the value of our work, which is very important.
The prize is a very nice recognition of the impact of the work that I've been involved in.
It's validation, and it certainly makes everybody feel tremendous that we've been able to achieve this kind of acknowledgement of the quality of the work.
But it also is always an inspiration and motivation to continue to do more and to continue along this path. I've always been fascinated by science, and from a very young age. My father's a scientist, and so I probably got exposed to science very early on in my life. And I was always interested in how science could inform medicine. That's part of the reason I trained as a scientist and as a physician. And I always wanted a career where I could combine science and medicine. When I trained at the Dana-Farber, I then became interested in studying lung cancer.
He was one of our hematology-oncology trainees. We're blessed at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute to have some of the best trainees in the country, and he stood out even amongst them.
It's immediately obvious that Hasse is a brilliant scientist, a compassionate clinician, and incredibly knowledgeable about his field. And so he's the type of person that you love to discuss science with, love to discuss clinical medicine with.
The thing about him is he always sees what's coming. I think one of the difficulties in research is what's the question that you work on, and he can always see what's the next important question.
You know, obviously lung cancer is a terrible diagnosis, and he's kind of seen it all. I mean, he sees patients come into the clinic, he sees patients suffer, and he focuses on what he can do for them.
One of the things that has distinguished Dr. Yanni is his ability to make ongoing discoveries that are meaningful to our patients and have changed the lives of hundreds of thousands of people around the world.
There's nothing else I could have done that would have been satisfying, so I think the job chose me. When I was about 6 or 7 years old, you know, they ask you to describe what you want to be when you grow up. And the picture I drew was I was operating on a basketball player, and it said, I want to be a doctor. Where this came from, I have no idea.
He was an exceptional student, perhaps the best student I've ever interacted with. He had enormous knowledge of medicine, even though he was only a senior medical student. And he had a passion for learning and understanding disease.
What really sets apart people like Tim. So a researcher from brilliant and great researcher is that ability to recognize what are the important questions that need to be answered and how to do it and when is the right time to do it.
He's always pushing the envelope and trying to see as far ahead, to the next steps that he can. Anytime there's a chance that something is going to be the next breakthrough, he's already kind of got that in mind before you start down that path, so he knows where he's going.
He really includes everyone around him in the things that he's interested in, so that you really think that you're the driving force, but actually behind the scenes, he's a lot of the driving force. That's a great thing in a leader, I think.
What I do is team science. I try to lead people in a good direction that allows us to make progress in terms of understanding the disease that we study, and to hopefully someday impact the lives of our patients.
Are you Posse?
Tim? Nice to meet you.
Good to see you. We're the awardees.
Yeah.
This is us.
I think we're early.
Yeah, we are. Let's go,
Should
for,
we
a
go for a
walk.
walk?
Yeah, come on.
All right, Posse, what does this mean to you? Getting the Griffuel.
It's certainly an honor to get it, and these things are always inspiring and motivating to continue to do what we do every day, right?
Absolutely.
And for you?
Well, it does make you pause and think about why people get these awards, right?
For sure.
Why me? In the background, people always think about, pushing forward with a big idea that ultimately worked. The reality is it's the people who are not daunted by failure. Right?
Well, but that's what, if you stay in science long enough, you have a...
You fail.
Well, you fail.
Far more than you succeed.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you can do it enough times, you ultimately win these awards.
There is an element of luck.
There
There's
is.
no question about that.
It's a great pleasure to welcome you. Today we celebrate the research of two leading professors, Professor Jene from the Dana-Farber and Harvard University, and Professor Ley from Washington University in St. Louis. So welcome to all of you in this house. This house is a bridge between our two great scientific nations, France and the US. Thank you very much.
Bonjour à tous, je suis au regret de ne pas être parmi vous aujourd'hui, mais vous savez que la pandémie complique notre vie. Le prix Griffuel a maintenant 50 ans. Il a été créé grâce à la générosité d'une famille de donateurs, de gens qui ont consacré leur vie à défendre les gens en difficulté et qui, à leur décès, n'ayant pas d'héritier, ont légué à notre fondation leur héritage afin que nous puissions chaque année récompenser et encourager les meilleurs chercheurs en oncologie, aussi bien en recherche fondamentale qu'en recherche translationnelle et clinique. Grâce à la générosité des époux Griffuel, nous pouvons donner chaque année 300 000 € à 2 chercheurs dont les travaux d'excellence vont permettre de progresser dans la résolution des problèmes en faveur des patients.
C'est un immense plaisir, chers collègues, de vous féliciter aujourd'hui pour être les récipiendaires de ce prestigieux prix Griffuel attribué par la Fondation ARC. Le jury a été particulièrement sensible à la qualité de vos travaux sur la séquence complète du génome d'une leucémie et le ciblage pharmacologique du récepteur à l'EGF. Travaux qui ont déjà bénéficié à des milliers de patients et soulevé des espoirs pour de milliers d'autres. Ils incarnent parfaitement la philosophie de la Fondation ARC, de la mise au service de la recherche fondamentale pour des patients atteints de cancer et le développement de la recherche translationnelle et clinique.
2 de nos anciens lauréats, le professeur Temin et le professeur Hartwell, ont eu, après avoir reçu le prix Griffuel, l'attribution d'un prix Nobel, et je ne peux que souhaiter à nos lauréats de cette année d'avoir, après le prix Griffuel, cette nouvelle distinction.
Mesdames et Messieurs, merci beaucoup. Thus endeth the French part of my narrative today. It's wonderful to be here among all of you, and it's a fantastic honor that I can only accept on behalf of the many, many, many colleagues at Washington University that made this work possible.
We've always known and suspected that cancer was a genetic disease because we had evidence that in most cancer cells, their DNA was not normal.
Well, what Tim did was to take samples of malignant cells from patients with acute leukemia and develop techniques for sequencing their entire genome.
We had a relatively junior group, and he pulled everybody together and convinced everyone that sequencing a cancer genome will have broad implications in health and disease going forward. You know, many of us said, you know, under our breath that this is nutty. Most everybody thought we'd see 1,000 to 10,000 mutations, in which case we could never figure it out. And he kept on saying, no, it might be simpler than you think. And it turned out to be, you know, just a handful of mutations, 10 to 20 mutations that defined the AML genomes. I thought to myself, there must be some mistake. Somebody's made it. This is a joke. Probably he was surprised too. You know, he'll probably lie to you and say he wasn't, because he said it would be manageable and there won't be that many mutations. But I know that he was probably stunned as well. The fact that there were only 10 or 20 mutations in coding regions of the AML genome suggested to me that we'll figure it out someday. It's a formidable task, but it's doable. It'll take time, but it's doable.
The opportunity that you have to impart that joy of discovery to your trainees, that is really the legacy that we all share and have. There is this eternal braid of knowledge and discovery that links all scientists going backward and forward. That connection to the past and the future is what makes this so special. My great thanks to the Foundation for this wonderful honor. I accept on behalf of all my colleagues at WashU who made this possible. Thank you.
Bruce Johnson, who is my mentor and colleague who's here today, gave me a good piece of advice. He said, you know, it's good to study model systems, but it's very important to study what happens in the patients and in the patient's tumors. And what we learn in the clinic, we bring back to the laboratory to understand and hopefully develop new solutions to. And I am happy and proud that some of these have become successes, and we've been able to see how lung cancer treatments can change over time, and proud to be able to contribute to that.
The initial observation was that there were subsets of patients who were very susceptible to a pill. At the time it was gefitinib. It's a drug directed against the epidermal growth factor receptor.
But it only worked in a small number of patients. The majority of patients did not benefit. And so he was actually one of the very first, as a fellow, to have the idea, well, there must be a reason, maybe there's a mutation. And he was obviously part of the initial team that discovered the EGFR mutations, because many companies were trying to improve upon the first generation drug, and they were trying to make it more potent, just bind it, inhibit it more strongly. But they had a much simpler idea to take the form of the EGFR that was already mutated and look for drugs that inhibited that over the normal EGFR.
And of course, that led to the discovery and then ultimate FDA approval of osimertinib in 2015, I believe. What that meant for patients was just incredible. The discovery of osimertinib and the development of osimertinib basically gave these patients a second chance at life. All of a sudden, it allowed a swath of patients receive another line of therapy that now was effective again.
But Posse didn't stop there. He knew that these patients would eventually become resistant to the drug, just as in infectious disease, cancers become resistant to our therapies. He discovered multiple mechanisms by which lung cancers become resistant to EGFR inhibitors and developed new therapies to treat those patients.
It's really an honor and privilege to be recognized with this award, and it's been an amazing 20+ years that I've been able to work with a group of colleagues, trainees, oncologists, clinicians, and most of all the patients who it's been a privilege and honor to take care of and who have entrusted us in enrolling in therapeutic and translational clinical trials. And it's through that we've been able to make progress in this field. Thank you all again. Thank you to the Foundation for this wonderful award. You always hope and wish that what you're working on at some point will impact how you take care of people. And not just the way we take care of them, but their outcome.
The foundations, like ARC, provide such an important piece of the puzzle for people who are doing cutting-edge research. You know, most of the funding for the research that we do, you have to be so far along, and you almost have to be doing a sure thing in order to get the money. Foundation monies don't have all those strings attached to them, and they allow you to think outside the box, to do things that are incredibly innovative that you might not otherwise have done. We need this kind of support, and it's incredibly important and incredibly impactful, more than you can imagine.